So we are live now, I believe. Yes, yes. I see check marks. Cool. So, welcome, everyone, back to another career clinic with myself, Manny Duenas, aka the Career Doctor. And we have a very special guest today who is going to be taking us on a fun ride, learning about career clarity, right? And her name is Jess Smith, and from Jess Smith Coaching, right? And she is going to really quick introduce herself in a minute here. Before we get there, I do want to let you all know why we do this, and a little bit about myself, of course. So we do these monthly career clinics, right? So that we are creating more resources for job seekers who are, whether they're struggling in their job search, whether you're a student, looking for your first job, or you're a seasoned professional transitioning into a new career, right? Career Clinic addresses all of those things, okay, on a monthly basis, and it's free, right? It's live on YouTube, and it's you can find it on my channel, Career Doctor Media. So that being said, just really quick, a little bit about myself. My 9 to 5, I work at a national nonprofit called Year Up, where I'm an employment placement manager, and I actually teach career development and interpersonal relations to young adults between the ages of 18 and 24 from underserved communities, many who don't have college degrees. Right? And I essentially, when teaching them career development and interpersonal relations, I'm preparing them for their internships at Facebook. So the campus that I sit at, we're actually partnered with Facebook. That's my 9 to 5 and what I'm up to on a daily basis. Outside of that, when I put on this lab coat and become the career doctor, I am helping first generation college graduates and students like myself. I'm first gen, navigate their careers and get job search ready before they graduate, right? Becoming ultra competitive before they graduate so that they're ready to go when they hit the job market. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm going to pass the mic over to Jess. If you can tell us a little bit more about yourself, that would be amazing.
Yeah, totally. Well, first off, thank you, Manny, for having me. We've become friends with all the stuff we've done together now at this point. So it's really fun to get to do this together. And I think the work that you're doing is so important, and preparing people before they graduate, right? You're really setting people up to be successful. And we can maybe get into a little bit of that with my story, because there was a little like after college. So we'll get into that. But I'm Jess. I am a career clarity coach and a job search expert. So I help people who are unhappy with their jobs to transition into careers that they love by connecting with their inner power. And I've been doing this work for about 2 years now. And prior to getting into the coaching world, I actually spent 4 years working for Salesforce. It's a Fortune 500 tech company in San Francisco. I worked on their recruiting teams and absolutely loved it. But what inspired me to move over into the coaching world was really wanting to help people on a deeper level. So that's been a really nice blend for me, is bringing together my recruiting skills, my clarity experiences, and just my deep love of supporting others with career coaching. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Let me unmute myself before I start talking, not make that mistake. All right. So I think, that's actually a good segue into our first question, right? And, it's about your story, right? So Salesforce recruiting, turn career coach. And how did that happen? And how did you find some type of career clarity to make that step into that type of career?
Yeah, totally. And I'll even take you back one more, because I've been through my own clarity process twice now. So what happened for me when I was in college, I thought that I wanted to be a buyer at a large retail corporation. So if you're not familiar, buyers are responsible for picking out all the products that are going to go in the store and allocating them, right? And I got a degree in retail merchandising. It was very specific. Like, that's what I was going to do. It was my thing. And I did all the right things, right? I got an internship, I got a job before I graduated from college. And once I got into that career path in the real world, right, it's quite different than what my college experience was. Once I got into this role as an analyst, it was the first role on that career path to becoming a buyer, I realized that it was not a good fit for me. And that was shocking and jarring and painful and embarrassing, right? I was in this cohort. It was called the Merchant Leadership Program. So it was like this whole thing, right, that everyone knew about and was looking at. And I was like, wow, I don't like this, right? And so that was really the first time that I was like, I get to go on a clarity journey right now. I am not open to continuing to do this job that I don't like and I'm not good at. So I better pick myself up and find something new, right? So that was my first clarity journey, really getting curious about myself and asking myself some tough questions, right? And really getting curious to come to the conclusion that I wanted to move into recruiting. So that was my first transition. I moved from being an analyst over into the recruiting world. And like I mentioned, I loved it. It was such a relief to show up at work and feel excited finally about the work that I was doing. I felt like I got to utilize my natural strengths in recruiting, which was great. That brought a lot of joy to me. And I had an awesome time. And then what happened was that about 3 years in, I felt like I had mastered various pieces of the role and was feeling really inspired to, again, like I said before, help people on a deeper level. I was like, wow, I know so much now being on the inside that if I could share that information with job seekers, they could do so much better in the process, right? So I kind of went on this journey again to see like, how can I help people in a deeper capacity? How can I do the work that I really want to be doing now that I've grown and evolved? And the answer this time was that I should be an entrepreneur, which was totally unexpected to me. I'm not the person that was like, I want to be my own boss. I was never that person. So yeah, it was really fun and exciting to realize, oh, this is a path that I could create for myself. So that was my second clarity journey in moving into career coaching.
Amazing. Your journey, I can definitely relate and it resonates with me. I think, when looking back on my college days, and I was actually having this conversation briefly yesterday with a professor from the university, and when I graduated, from college, I already knew, I already made up my mind that I was not going to pursue my major in information systems. I was like, okay, I'm just doing this to get through it, and then I'll figure it out, right?
Mhm.
And then the bills kept on coming, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and I ended up reaching out to my professor and landed an internship through her, fortunately, and it was related to like the part-time job that I was doing when I was in college, which was like social media. So I was like, let's do an internship in marketing. Hated it, but I think what I'm taking away from what you said is trying something and seeing if it works, if you're gonna like it. And granted, this is when I was fresh out of college. I didn't know about informational interviews. I mean, that was a thing back then. But I realized I hated it, and I got into recruiting myself as well. Right.
Mhm.
My reasons were a little bit different. It's because my stepdad had been a recruiter, so I was like, oh, that was for the family. So let me try this out. All my friends are also doing it. Let me try this out. So taking action, exploring, I feel is so important when you're looking for what's next in your career. Now you shared your story, with how you got to where you are today. We're kind of dropping this term, sprinkling it around here and there, career clarity. All right. So for the people that are listening in, Jess, can you tell us what is career clarity exactly?
Yeah. So, in my terms, career clarity is knowing what job you want and why you want it. And I think that why piece is a crucial element that people sometimes forget, right? Because we have been influenced by a lot of things, whether it's our parents, our professors, extended family, our friends, right? There's lots of information and opinions coming at us all the time. So sometimes we think that we should be doing something, right? So I'll find that people can sometimes say, I want to be a buyer, right? But then I'm like, well, why do you want that? And then that's where they struggle to articulate, like, really why. So for me, I think it's clarity comes when you can take it to that deeper level and say, here's what I want, and here's why I want it.
So you're mentioning that like why you want it, because I think we both come across a lot of people who tell us, I know what job I want,
Mhm.
right? But then they kind of miss the part like, okay, why do you want
Mhm.
it? And I can give a quick example,
Yeah.
right? So prior to the job I'm working at right now, I worked at software engineering boot camps. People were transitioning careers to become software engineers, and learn how to code over the course of 3 months, right? And I was in those like information sessions. I talk about career services and like the program, and I would always encourage people. I'd ask them like, so like, why do you want to do this? And because a lot of the reason people do it for the wrong reasons, right?
Mhm.
Engineering pays really well. One, pays really well. It's a good career, right? But it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
And you have like these boot camps, people coming in and deciding that they want this, paying $10,000+ to do something for 3 months, and figure out they hate it, right? And like it's not for them. So it's so important, to embark on a journey of discovery, and asking around and learning about things before you do them, right? It's like the research aspect of things, right? So
Mhm.
um, on that note, how do you think someone can gain career clarity, or what questions can someone, or what is a question someone would ask themselves to gain a little bit of clarity in their career?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think that something that's really important to do when you're thinking about career clarity is to evaluate where you are currently. So I guess in this case, if we're speaking to college students, like think about your classes, right? Think about any part-time work that you've done. Think about any projects or maybe extracurricular things that you've done. For people in their careers, you can think about your current role, right? And so I would ask yourself, what do I like about my current work experience? And a lot of times there's that immediate, like, I don't like anything. Like, I don't like it here. I hate it, right? And so you've got to like step beyond that, right? Say, okay, yes, in a broad sense, I hate it, but there are more than likely some pieces here that I can pull on that are interesting, right? So I think it's about getting curious about one, your current experience. So, as an example, for me, when I was in my analyst buyer job, I was like, okay, I do not like working with all these spreadsheets. I don't understand the numbers. I don't know what they're asking me in these meetings. It's so uncomfortable, right? None of that was in alignment with me. And so I started looking for like, what are moments in my workday that I actually am enjoying myself? And I found that there were moments when I got to work with the intern on our team. There were moments when I got to go to like, they did personal development presentations and stuff for us, which is great. I loved that kind of stuff. I loved my team, right? The people that I got to be with. And I loved learning about what everyone else was doing. And so even though none of those things that I loved were technically part of my job description, it was still part of my day, right? So there were pieces that I could pull on to say, okay, here are the things that I'm enjoying. What's the common factor here? For me, it was people, right? I love people. I love networking. I love having conversations. I love thinking about personal growth, right? And advancement. And I'm endlessly curious about what people are up to, right? In their careers and their jobs and whatever they're doing. So I would say that's an easy starting point is just identifying what do I like about what I'm doing right now? What aspects of my current work are giving me energy? And which aspects of my current work are sucking my energy away, taking the energy away. So that's something to look at. I think of thinking about work in the past, right? So again, maybe this is past jobs that you've had, past part-time jobs, even stuff like in high school, maybe what did you like, right? I think sometimes people discount things that they liked when they were younger. Even when you were a little kid, like what did you like doing? What were you excited about, right? People think that it's not relevant anymore at times, but there can be little clues there, right? Like maybe don't actually want to be a teacher anymore, but something about that was interesting to you at one point, right? So it's again going a level deeper and saying, what about that caught my eye? Do I like presenting things, maybe like being in front of people? Do I like being a leader? Like something about that had caught your attention at one point. So get curious about the experiences that you have had and are having right now and try to identify those little pieces of what you are enjoying.
Oh my God, I love that so much. And I feel this is something that, I'm going to share with my students at Year Up. Because a lot of the time, and I'm sure like they'll end up watching this at some point on YouTube, but a lot of the time, they'll go through the program, right? They'll go through 5 months of learning and development, learning a specific skill like IT or project management, and then they'll earn the internship and be in there for 6 months, doing IT help desk or being a recruiting coordinator, right? And a lot of the times it happens throughout the process. When they enter the program, they're not sure what they want to do. A lot of the time when they're going to the internship, they're not sure if they want to do what they're doing in internship. And then when they graduate, they're not sure, what they want to pursue afterward, or, how the skills that they've picked up translate into something else on the job market. So I think that, this conversation that we're having right now is so important for people who are, figuring it all out and trying to discover, what is next and how you can translate what you're doing now into something that you really want to do in the future. So I love everything that you're saying. Speaking my language for sure.
Yeah.
And there's this idea of career focus, right? Which is like, I guess, a layer, maybe one layer below career clarity. Right? Can you speak a little bit to what that means in the realm of career clarity?
Give me your definition of career focus.
So I would say that career focus is probably, in relation to goals, right? So career clarity, in my book is like you were saying, like knowing what you want to do. Career focus maybe is okay, you want to do, but how do you get there? And maybe what goals are you setting for yourself to get to that point? That's how I would define it. And I don't want to like say too much more because I definitely want to get pass the mic to you and hear your thoughts on this, and I'm happy to add more as well.
Yeah, I asked because it's not a term that I use, so I'm curious about it. But I think what you're saying, are you saying this is like post clarity, like what's the path going to be now? Or pre clarity?
I would say that this is probably after getting clarity, right? So like you know what you want to do. Now what's next, right? Like what are the like next steps in pursuing that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that this is what hangs people up because like you said, people don't know how am I going to get there? And when you can't see the path of how am I going to get there, that like bites you in the butt in clarity because it doesn't let you dream or even imagine any possibilities for yourself, right? So I think after you have the clarity, right, you're like, here's what I want, here's why I want it. Then it's about determining what that path is going to look like to get there. So for some people, that could be making changes in your resume, right? Making like highlighting different experiences in your resume and your LinkedIn profile compared to what you previously had. For some people, it might look like getting a particular certification. It might look like going back for more school, potentially, right? It might look like creating a project for yourself to gain some of this experience, right? Like, how am I going to showcase to someone that this is a skill that I have, right? And so I think that one way that you can start to determine the path, which I know is something you're really passionate about, Manny, is informational interviewing, right? So I help people use informational interviews for clarity, but they're also great post clarity to start figuring out how am I going to make this transition. So I would get out there and talk to people who have made the transition, right? Ask them how they did it. Learn from them. Did they do a project, right? What did it take? And I think that it's really important because this happens all the time that we make assumptions on what is going to be helpful without actually confirming that with an expert. So what I mean is like I want to get into HR, so I'm going to go pay for this HR certification, and then that will get me a job in HR. But this was like something that actually happened with someone, and from my perspective as someone who is working in HR, I was like, you don't need a certification. Like that's not actually, it might be a benefit, right? I'm not trying to hate on like certifications or anything, but
Mm.
I think that you need to be really intentional about what am I going after to get this experience, and is it actually going to matter to the right people? Or have I just kind of come up with this idea and think it's a great idea and that it's going to matter? But then if no one cares about it, it's like, well, then you just spend all this time and money on something that's not actually going to get you where you want to go. So I think being really intentional about what the path is going to look like and confirming that it's a good path with experts in that area is the way to do it.
Now, can I ask, if, you know, I don't, I think it's still appropriate to ask this, and forgive me if you've already addressed it, but why is this all important? Why is career clarity so important to someone or job seeker? I'm just curious to hear like your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So we work so much of our lives. Like if you think about it, we work, gosh, let's see if I can recall these stats. If you're working 40 hours per week, you are spending 36% of your waking hours working. And there are a lot of us that work more than 40 hours per week, right? Like I know my sister definitely works more than 40 hours per week. I definitely work more than 40 hours per week. So that percentage gets bigger and bigger the more hours you're working each week, right? And so I think that career clarity is so important because we spend so much time at work that it's like, do you really want to spend that much time doing something that you don't enjoy? And think how many years we work, right? We work from the time we're, 18 or like 22, whenever you graduate, right? Up until 65, even later sometimes. So do you really want to spend your one special life? A hiring manager actually said that to me once. He said, "This is your one special life." And that like so just like hit me right in the heart. Is
Powerful.
how are you going to spend your life, you know? And I think that it's important to be doing work that we enjoy because that spills over into our personal life, right? If you are so not happy at work, as much as you want to compartmentalize that,
Mm.
it's gonna spill over, right? If it's sucking all of your energy and there's no energy left for your family or your friends, like they're gonna notice, you're gonna feel it. So it does have a broader impact, right? And so that's why I'm just really passionate about career clarity. I'm someone who believes that we all can find work that we enjoy doing and that, as long as we're committed to that process, that it's possible for all of us.
Completely agree. And I guess if I were to speak to that a little bit,
Mhm.
I wanted to highlight um, when I was a recruiter. I I was a technical recruiter in San Francisco, and I worked for a staffing agency, and it was highly competitive. Right, I was on a team, and turnover was new people coming onto the team, and it just all felt like a competition. Like there was a lot of support, and I learned a lot about it. Right, but like to your point, I felt like my life force was just being drained.
Mm.
I'd stay after hours, sourcing, trying to find like new people to reach out to, and I quickly became unhappy, with that role. And so that's when, I don't know if you can call it clarity, maybe, but I decided to, move out of that space, because it wasn't making me happy. I felt like I actually got some gray hairs from being in that role.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was also older than a lot of the people as well. I felt like I'm not there to compete. I'm there to help people.
Mm.
I'm there to like help people get jobs, and I really wanted to be a part of that journey.
Yeah.
And it's very transactional, when you're at least in my opinion, back when I was doing that, it felt very transactional, right?
Mhm.
I was getting people in seats through the door, making sales, all that stuff. So is this something like, because I know that you moved out of the recruiting space as well, and I'm very curious if this was something that was like a similar experience for you? Like at some point, did you feel like, you were being drained and it wasn't, working for you anymore? Like at what point did that happen, do you think?
Yeah. So for me, I think it was kind of a growth and evolution thing. I really did love recruiting when I was in that world for those I was there for 4 years. I did enjoy it. Um, what I enjoyed most became, like, more and more apparent to me, like, the longer that time went on, right? Because there definitely is an element in recruiting that's like sales, like you mentioned, where it's like, "We need you to fill this many roles, we need you to reach out to this many people, we need you to do this many interviews," right? So I was not as thrilled about that aspect of the role as well.
Same here.
So it can get a little transactional, right? And that's where the piece comes in for me of wanting to help people on a deeper level, right? Was something that I really wanted to do. I wanted to help develop people. I didn't have the language at the time, but I wanted to coach people. This is what I wanted, right? I was like, I want to knowledge share. I want to help people better themselves. I want to help people get to where they're trying to go. And I want to do it in a one-on-one capacity. I want to do it in a longer term capacity. So like as I'm talking about this is my clarity coming through for people to notice, right? Like I got introspective and noticed about myself, okay, I love building relationships with my hiring teams, right? I love being that person that can give them what they need. I love finding the perfect candidate for them. I love working with the candidates was another thing that I loved, right? I loved having just really great candidates that I was so excited to help them get to where they're trying to go. And so I went on my own clarity journey, right? And was like, okay, where can I do more of this like relationship building, development work? And I actually spent quite a bit of time thinking that I was going to move on to a talent development team.
Hmm.
I thought that that was the path for me. So this is probably a good share for people when they're on their clarity search as well, is that it's okay to get it wrong, right? It's okay to explore something and say, "Ooh, hey, that's not for me." So even though I had spent, I was doing this while I had full-time work, obviously, so it kind of got extended, right? In my free time as I'm exploring this, I had so many informational interviews with people on the talent development team, and every time that I talked to them, I I had my clarity that I would show up to the conversation and say, "This is what I want. I wanna work with people one-on-one. I wanna do some coaching element. I wanna develop them. Like, is that what you're doing?" And they would say, "Well, we're thinking about developing people at scale."
Hmm.
So for the organization I was in, it was like, "How can we develop 30,000 people at once? How can we serve all of these people?" And so I was just like, where can I do this one-on-one thing that I want to do? So I think that you have to remember that in your clarity journey, right? Sorry, I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but I think it's a good one. But I was sticking to what I wanted, right? I was like, I want one-on-one, I want long-term relationships. Where am I going to find that? And the more and more informational interviews that I had, it became apparent that it was not on the talent development team. It was more project management in this sense. And I actually ended up having a director on one of the talent development teams say to me, she said, "Jess, what you want to do is not here. It is not here at our organization. You need to leave and either go do consulting or go start your own business." And so that was like a revolutionary idea to me. I was like, I had never thought about that. What? But that was really the catalyst for me, was that this amazing leader to say, "Hey, you shouldn't be at our company anymore," right? Instead of trying to convince me to stay, it was like, what you want is not here. So you get to go find that somewhere else. So that was how I kind of got out of recruiting. And that's what some of the clarity journey looked like for me, was, testing something out and then saying, okay, I don't think that's the right path for me, right? And making a pivot from there.
So you kind of left a thread, loose there for me to pull on,
Mhm.
and ask, a follow-up question to
Sure.
that I've already been pondering, and I'm so glad you brought up, that someone kind of maybe pushed you, to maybe gain clarity or kind of move forward with, the things that you really want to do in life. And I'm wondering, so does everybody need that type of person in their life to be that catalyst? Or is it something that they find out about themselves by themselves, right? Or is it something that, they need like a career coach for, right? Like, what are your thoughts on finding like maybe a mentor or a coach to help you along the way, or if it's something that they're able to figure out on their own?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'm just gonna be totally honest, right? Honesty is always best. So this woman that I spoke to,
Yeah.
our conversation was one 30-minute conversation. And so she kind of implanted this idea in my mind that I was like, oh, not inside the organization, right? I loved the organization, so I hadn't considered outside of the organization at that point, outside of the company. And so she was someone who planted a seed for me. I was responsible for following through on that, right? So I do think that there's an element of responsibility that comes in when you're seeking a new career path. I think there is a massive level of commitment that gets to happen, right? It's not easy because if it was easy, everyone would shuffle around and be in their dream jobs, right? So there's definitely a commitment element. For me, I have always been very career driven. I have always been like, I will do what I love. So for me, I was able to translate that for myself in this instance. However, once I started my business, I was like, oh my God, I have no idea how to start a business. I have no idea how to do this. And so in that moment, that was the coach that I needed. So I didn't need a career coach so much, me personally, but I needed a business coach because I was like, I have no idea how to do this, right? So for someone who's feeling like, wow, I have no idea how to navigate this. I have no idea how to figure out what career I want next. I have no idea what path I'm supposed to take, and I need someone to hold me accountable, right? I think that's the accountability piece that comes in. If you're feeling that way about your career, I would say a coach is an amazing way to move forward, right? And I think a big piece of it is that accountability. I know for my clients, a lot of it is like, Jess is going to check in and be like, did you do what we talked about doing, right? Did you do what you're going to do? And that's motivating to people when someone's going to check in on you. My business coach does that for me and has been for the past 2 years, right? Is like, hey, Jess, are you advancing on these things that we've talked about? So I think that if it's something that you're really unfamiliar with, if it's something that you are struggling with, right? Struggling to find the pieces and bring them together, it's always beneficial to reach out for help. It's always beneficial to get a perspective from a coach or a mentor or someone else. It's my opinion. What do you think?
I think that for when you're looking for this person like that, I can totally relate. Because I also have clients that they always tell me that like I need someone to hold me accountable, and it totally like just fits like what we're talking about right now, right? Like a lot of people um, have that challenge with doing something on their own and not at least not holding themselves accountable, right? And like, yeah, we've got like our significant others or we've got our friends, and they're not going to hold us accountable for doing like these types of things, right? And even if you ask them, they probably feel uncomfortable doing it, or that like whoever your significant, if you have a significant other, they'd probably just be like, oh well, it's you get a break,
Yeah.
you've been working hard, so like someone who is like not necessarily, I was gonna say not your friend, but like someone who's gonna be there to hold you accountable, right? And empower you to hold yourself accountable.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you were just saying, is a good kind of indication of when someone would reach out for this type of support is when they're finding that, they are doing this on their own, trying to seek out a new career, but they're not finding success in
Yeah.
doing it, or they're not doing it in the time that they want to, right? Especially if they're setting goals and they're not hitting their goals, then, it's definitely kind of feeling out, okay, what am I doing wrong here? Right.
Yeah.
And what type of support do I need? That was actually going to be like a follow-up question, but I think you kind of already started getting into it. And that was going to be like, when, right? When does someone like step in? When do you need a career coach?
Yeah. And I think to jump in on that, sometimes it takes people a while to recognize that they need support, right? And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Maybe watching this is something to prompt you into saying like, "Hey, do I need some extra support here?" Right? And I actually had a client who I spoke with at one point, and she was like, I don't really know if I need a coach. I'm not really sure." And then a year later, it was almost like exactly a year later, we spoke again. And she was like, "Wow, I'm realizing we spoke 1 year ago, and I'm exactly where I was a year ago." And so when you have a moment like that where you're like, "I am exactly where I was 1 year ago," that means like something you need a push in some way, right? Whether it's like a coach, like could be anything, right? But I think that's an indicator that you might need help, right? Like for her, it was some accountability and just not knowing how to get started, right? So as much as she wanted to make progress, it was like not knowing what steps to take was holding her back from actually making progress, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that great opportunity for this question that I just put up on the screen here. Right? 'Cause I'm so curious to hear about, how you've helped people, find or gain that clarity, and where were they when you started talking to them, and where are they today, right? So I think that's a great way to kind of get into this question. So can you share with us,
Yeah.
that experience?
Yeah, totally. So I'm really excited for this question because I want to talk about my one of my clients who just got an offer earlier this week, which is really exciting.
Congratulations to them.
Yeah, it's really, really exciting. So my client, we'll call him Dan. My client Dan came to me and he was working in shipping and receiving for a major retail corporation. And he had been there for a couple of years. It was a position where there was no upward mobility, so he was kind of just stuck in this role, right? And was not feeling like clearly it was not his passion work, right, of what he wanted to be doing. And so that was really why he came to me. It was like, "Hey, I know I need something. I know I need something more than this. I'm meant for more than this, but I have no idea what that looks like, Jess. Like, can you help me?" So we went through the clarity process together. And one of the things that I do with my clarity clients is something called identifying their personal themes. So a personal theme could be something that you're naturally skilled at. It could be something that you love doing. It could be a driving force in your life. So for Dan, what we identified as his personal themes were making an impact, problem solving, investigating, connection, and transportation were his 5 personal themes. So things that he loves, things that he's really good at. And so I use this with my clients as a guidepost, right? To say, okay, here's kind of who I am. Here's my starting point of what I'm thinking, or what I know about myself, right? And then to go out and test these other options and say, which one of these options are going to be in alignment with who I am as a person, right? And so for Dan in particular, impact was one of his personal themes, and that was a big piece of what was missing in his current role. So he's totally like humanitarian type of person, wants to really support people. He's definitely a supporter. And also he's got this fascination with transportation still, right?
Hmm.
We've got impact, we've got transportation, problem solving comes in with the transportation piece, investigating, and then loves connecting with people, right? And so for Dan, what ended up coming from the clarity process is that he wanted to do logistics and he wants to do it in a humanitarian capacity. And so I'm really, really excited because his offer was for a logistics coordinator position. It's at a nonprofit that delivers healthcare solutions all around the world. And he's going to be making quite a bit more money. And the really exciting part is that he's going to have that impact now, right? He's going to be making that impact that feels really fulfilling to him. It makes him happy. And I had a text from him last night and he said, "I am ready to help people. I'm ready to start helping people." And that like makes me emotional because I know it means so much to him. And now he's going to have an opportunity to do that and to be happy with that. So I think that really is the beauty of taking the time to figure it out and being intentional about your career, right, is that you can come out on the other side and end up with something that really, really lights you up. And just I'm just imagining how that's going to change his life, compared to where he's been for the past couple years. It's going to be such an amazing change for him. So, yeah.
That is such an amazing story and experience that you've had with some of your clients. And I wonder, have you ever encountered anyone who, has like these passions and interests, but maybe lacks, some of the skills to do that job? And what would you say to someone who's like kind of like in that space? Like, how should they kind of navigate and get from point A where they're at to, the finish line of like the job that they want? Maybe they don't have those skills just yet, but they're very passionate about that, and that's where they want to be.
Yeah, yeah. So when it comes to gaining career clarity and thinking about options for careers, I like to tell people, just use the classic example of a doctor, right? People are like, well, I can't be a doctor because I don't have A, B, and C and whatever. And the reality is that you could be a doctor. You could. What the path looks like to becoming a doctor is probably going back to school and doing a residency or whatever doctors have to do, right? You got to do all this crazy stuff. You probably got to spend a crazy amount of money, but you could choose to be a doctor if you wanted to. Mm-hmm. So I really think it comes down to, as part of the clarity process, is like, here's the path. Is it a path that I want to take or not? Some people don't want to go back to school. Some people love going back to school, right? It all just depends. And so I would say for people who are really interested in something, even if it doesn't feel attainable, I would say first figure out what the path would look like to getting that exact thing.
Yeah.
And then even if that's not a path that you're willing to take, instead of just trashing it completely, try to explore in that area. Like, what else could I be doing in that area, right? Maybe talk to people in that role and say, is there something similar that would be in this world that maybe would have a lower barrier to entry, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think when you get curious, there's opportunity, right? And I was even talking to someone this morning. We were doing a vision clarity session, and she's just this beautiful human with like so much energy just like radiating from her, right? And I'm like, wow, she's got so many options, and that could manifest in various different ways. It's really just about getting curious as to what could it look like and breaking out of the box of what you think it should look like. Does that make sense? We have an expectation of like, it can only look like this, but there are so many companies doing all sorts of cool stuff. There are so many startups. There are entrepreneurs doing cool stuff, right? There are so many options that you need to get more in that space of curiosity to see what it could possibly look like.
Exactly. And I think that now you're like kind of navigating into the space that I love talking about, right? And that's like the networking aspect, right? And doing like the informational interviews, and how impactful those are with helping you, as a tool to help you gain clarity in your career by learning about other people's experiences and their journeys and their paths, like we were mentioning earlier. And I can't stress enough, like, for people, like, don't sleep on doing informational interviews. And if you're not familiar with what that is, it's essentially you going out, using something like LinkedIn and reaching out to someone who's in a job or a career field that you're interested in getting into that maybe you're not in yet, right? And like tapping them, virtual tap on their shoulder, hey, excuse me, I'd love to connect with you. I'm interested in, the industry and kind of, transitioning into this field. I would love to learn about your experience, and how you transitioned into it, or, what the path that you took to get there, right? And then you land the information and you learn, right? And so I love doing that because, and I tell my clients and students to encourage that as well, right? Because it helps so much with like, okay, now you kind of have a taste of what that could look like for you, right? As opposed to just kind of going in blindly, and figuring it out, which is something that I did early on in my career, like, well, not in my career, it's like when I got out of college, like blindly just try stuff, but like there are things that, resources and these tools that we can utilize now to help us gain the knowledge that we need. So that is, just my 2 cents in the bucket on that, because I love talking about that topic here. And I know that we're about like at 45 minutes here on the live. And I wanted to just really quick start the closeout in terms of questions and ask you maybe one last question. And that would just be like, any advice or tips for anyone out there, maybe something that you haven't already talked about, around career clarity, for anyone who's listening or is going to be listening to this that may be struggling, or maybe they don't even know that they're struggling, right? And they're watching this, they discover like, I am struggling. What's like something that you would want them to walk away with?
I would want people to walk away with knowing that it's possible to find something that you enjoy. It's totally possible. And it kind of goes off of what I was just saying. There are literally so many possibilities out there. You just have to get curious and start checking stuff out. Like, go on LinkedIn and look at what other people are doing. Look at their job titles. Like, people have crazy job titles. When I was working at Salesforce, we had pro bono programs managers, right? That it's like, you would never think, I'm going to be a pro bono programs manager, right? But if you can get out there and start digging around, that will really start expanding your mind. So I think a lot of clarity is really about being curious about yourself, being curious about others, being curious about different jobs, right? Being curious about different industries. And instead of just like completely shutting things down, like just let that curiosity take you on a little adventure, right? And be open to it. Just be open to it.
Amazing. I love that. There's even more that I would like to add to that, but I'm not going to get. We could talk offline. We can talk about that on Clubhouse another time or something.
Okay.
Right? But I do want to provide space for anyone that's listening, has been listening, to write in the chat, whether that's on Facebook or YouTube Live. Any questions that you might have for Jess or myself, about the topic of career clarity, or anything that maybe question that you're going through with where you're at, put it in the chat. Let us know what your questions are, and we'll, while that's happening and while we're waiting for that, I'll start kind of wrapping up our chat here. So as you know, that these career clinics are once a month. I will say that I will be taking a break for May on the career clinics. I've been doing this for 6 months straight, or longer. I don't even know at this point. I think it was like November or October. No, it was even before that. So I'm going to be taking a break and for May. I have other things that I'm prioritizing to focus on, but we'll come back in June, right? And I want to put together a panel, actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna put together a panel of career coaches, and Jess, I want you to be there.
I love that.
I'm totally volunteering you already.
I love hanging with you. I'm in.
Yeah, so the topic is, so there are a ton of career coaches in the world, right? And a lot of us specialize in different areas, right? And how do you know what career coach is best for you? How do you figure that out? So I want to bring together, a team of different types of career coaches to talk about, what they do and how they're helping people, and just kind of talk this out, right? How do you find the right person, who's going to be the right fit for you, right? And it goes both ways. Obviously, you're always talking to clients as well, and are they a good fit for you? So that is kind of like the topic, and I said it prematurely probably, but I wanted to put that out into the universe so that it happens, and manifest that.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing topic. I think people will be really curious about that, because coaching is an investment, right? It's an investment. So you want to be with someone who resonates with you. And exactly like you were saying, we all resonate differently, right? So how can you go about finding who's going to be the right fit? I think that's going to be so insightful for people.
Yes. So we got the seal approval from the Career Clarity Queen. So we're going to do it in June. I guess all we got to figure out is if it's going to be on Clubhouse or something like this. We'll
Ooh.
figure it out. We'll figure it out. So, gonna wrap up. So, you've been listening to Career Clarity at the Career Clinic. Now, one thing that you should know is, on top of doing this on a monthly basis on places like, YouTube Live, Career Clinic, you can also find the club on Clubhouse, right, where I've been doing weekly events ranging from FANG and big tech job fairs, career fairs, and we get like 200 people in those rooms on average, and mock interviews. So if you're preparing for interviews, right, we have a room for that on Thursday. So Tuesday is the job fair, Thursday is the mock interviews that we have, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Not today though, not today, because we're doing this today, but next week, right? Mock interviews, and then we bring recruiters together on Fridays. So if you have Clubhouse or you're interested in Clubhouse, reach out to me. I know Jess is also on Clubhouse, so reach out to her. Maybe she might have some invites to give out. I don't know, but I have a few as well to give out. If anyone is interested, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Check us out on Clubhouse for the Career Clinic there. It's all free advice, right? Just like
Clubhouse is amazing for that. Like everyone should be taking advantage of that, right? It's free coaching. Like that's incredible.
Yeah, I plug this all the time to like year up students as well as like my students in my university program. Like, get on Clubhouse. It's like amazing for job seekers. So you'll find Career Doctor on there, IG, but not as active on IG. I did create like what's it called, a TikTok. Not as active on there. I'm more focused like on like the LinkedIn area and especially Clubhouse right now. So if you want to connect, find me in those places. And Jess, where can we find you? How can people find you, reach out to you? What's the best way?
Yeah, so the best way to find me is through LinkedIn. You search Jess Smith Coaching, but not my company page, it's my personal page. I think that's always funny on LinkedIn. So it's my personal page, Jess Smith. Yeah, and I'm on Clubhouse too. I would say that's probably like my second biggest platform. It's at Jess Smith Coach over on Clubhouse. And then my website is just jesssmithcoaching.com.
Amazing. Oh, look at, did you see, I don't know if you can see the comment there. Emily is in the chat.
I love Emily.
Yeah, Emily. Oh man, she's amazing. She hosts also on Clubhouse weekly on Thursdays. So yeah, if you haven't checked out Emily on Clubhouse, do so. The club, oh gosh, she's gonna hate me for this. Emily, it's the career level up club, correct? Please correct me. So she'll put that in the chat, and then I'll shout out her club on Clubhouse. But yeah, so follow Jess on LinkedIn, follow her on Clubhouse. Level Up Career Club. There it is, right there. The Luck Club. You're fired. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. Okay, well, I want to wrap up here. So I appreciate everyone for tuning in. And please, join us in June and find us on these other platforms where we're giving out free advice for your career. And that is a wrap, I believe. All right. Well, I appreciate you, Jess, for coming on here live and chatting with me, Career Doctor, and everyone. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you so much, Manny. So great to be with you and everyone else. Like, thank you for the opportunity. I so appreciate it.
Yes. Let's chat soon. I'm going to end the broadcast right now, but we can meet backstage. All right. Let me end this. Bye, everyone.